The Europeans came to settle in 1835.
Yep.
Buckley knew, because he could see the ships, coming in and around the Port Phillip area. He'd heard chatter from the local natives. What was his mindset? What did he start to think about what was going to happen?
Well, it was the beginning of the end for him in some ways, but he tried to keep the peace. He was going to he was known by the Aborigines as a peacemaker within their society. He realised he needed to know the whites, because he was still, he knew the whites were settling. So he knew they were coming and they were staying. So he had two agendas here. He had to get a pardon, because if they caught him, he's still an escaped convict, even though 32 years later in 1835 when they were coming to colonise. So he had to be friends with them. But he still had his Wadawurrung family, and that's really, really important. So how does he... So he finds the whites on Wadawurrung land, and the Wadawurrung people getting very upset because you've got to give something back. You can't just settle on their land. You have to be giving something, and they weren't giving enough. So Buckley says, how do I stop this problem from happening? Because they're going to kill these whites. There's only 8 of them. In fact, 5 were foreign Aborigines and 3 white guys, which is people that Batman had left there for the colony. So he says to his Aboriginal friends and family and the tribe, he says, don't kill them now, because if you kill them, you're not going to get any booty that they're going to bring over for the next ship. So wait for the next ship, keep them alive, and there will be no problem. And so he keeps... They think, oh yes, if we wait for the next ship, we'll get more booty. And the Aborigines loved European stuff. So he managed to stave them off. But at the same time, he manages to tell the white guys, don't worry, I've sorted it out. These guys won't hurt you. So he's playing 2 games. He's being nice guy for both, and then sort of being a double agent, if you like. And this is a problem he would have for the next 2 years while he became the interpreter, and he became a kind of go-between between whites and blacks. And
at this point, Adam, how old is he?
He would have been 55. This 55. Is 32 years after, 54, 55.
Right, and this is almost the beginning of the time when he is deciding and is really lost between where his loyalties lie to the native people who he lived with for the last 33 years, or is it to the white people who he's born of?
This is where the real trouble begins, because you can't be an agent of both.
No.
Buckley would find when the white people came to Melbourne and around that area in the 1830s, he found that suddenly the tensions were beginning to rise, and the white people saying, don't do this and you can't do this to black. He became the mouthpiece of the white people. So he's delivering all this, if you do this, we will shoot you stuff. Don't do that. And so they're beginning to say, well, who are you? You're meant to be our friend, and yet you're delivering white man's messages of you must do this. And to the white men, he was, who is this guy? He's lived with them for 30 years. He's a savage. So he couldn't be the friend of the white, and he couldn't be, and he was seen as a betrayal by the black. This is where the trouble began.
Absolutely.
And in the end, he says, I can't be both friends to both people. He tried to keep things, on an even keel. And then, of course, that never works. You can't be both.
Well, I think that, he needs to be admired for the fact that he did think about how the Aboriginal land was being dispossessed.
Yeah.
Every time he took someone onto Aboriginal land to show them the way, because none of them knew where to go and how to go. Yeah. And no one had been there. It was virgin land.
Yeah.
And so the whites would immediately put a claim on it. Yeah. Therefore, it was becoming less and less.
Yeah. I mean, it just got worse
even
and
though
worse.
The Aboriginals had no concept of ownership, but they
didn't have a concept of ownership, but all they knew is that their lands were being taken and they couldn't eat anymore, because the big killer wasn't... There's a misunderstanding, I think. People say the white people hunted the black people and killed them. I don't think... that was happening. I'm not saying that there weren't some terrible moments. The real killer was the sheep. The sheep ate all the Aboriginal staple, the yam. It's like, you've heard of the potato famine in Ireland in 1840. At the same time, it was the yam famine in Port Phillip, around the late 1830s, early 40s. So, they were killing the land and taking, possessing, and so the Aboriginals would spear the sheep for food, and of course all the trouble would start again, and they just got herded away, and so they were pretty much herded towards Melbourne, and the Melbourne people said, we don't want them. They became vagabonds, and they got all the terrible diseases, and and syphilis and
Smallpox
and all that stuff. And it was the beginning of the end. And within 5 years, they reckon, all the murnong, the yam that they were eating, their staple, was gone. It'd been eaten up by it. 5 years. These people have been here for 60,000 years working this beautiful balance with the land. White man comes with his sheep, and in 5 years, it's gone. So they've got no basic source of food. And without that yam, there's no kangaroos, there's no... all the wildlife runs off. So they then have to encroach on other Aboriginal people's lands, and there's the problems with that. You can't do that. And it just became a complete mess. You know.
And in all of that, there is Buckley caught in the middle.
He feels
and the story is a lot about, you know...
He feels like a traitor because every time he, as you said it earlier, every time he's going to help someone, name a place or stake out land, he's taking land away from his own people. It just doesn't work. And he says, I've had enough of this. I can't please you and I can't please you. I've got to leave. So in 1837, he says, I don't want to leave, but I've had enough. I'm 55, 56 years old. I can't do this. I can't be hated by both people.
That's how it begins to wind up and how it all ends up. But then he takes on a role a continuing role as the arbitrator, go between the natives and the white settlers.
Well, he was doing that. No, from 1835 to 1837, he is in the arbitrating role. But then in 1837, he's finished with that. He can't do it anymore because, as I say, he can't be both sides. So he leaves and goes to Tasmania and lives a very quiet life for 20 years. The story is not a particularly interesting one, but he did very, very simple jobs. He became a courier, and then one day he was on his gig on his little stagecoach, and it overturned, and he broke his back. And within 3 months, he well, it's the right thing to say, he'd given up the ghost. Poor old Buckley died at about the age of 76 in Tasmania.
So he had quite a long life, which was not usual.
No. Well, he did some things that no white person had done before.
Well, look, Adam, I just want to say that I'm so pleased you wrote those books.
Thank you.
As a female, I don't think I would have read the books if I did not know you previously. And the reason being, because it has such a male story to it. So full on male cast. And there's no romance, very little romance. There's no female heroines in it, and
I'd like to. I just can't find the female characters. I know my father used to say he wouldn't write a book unless there was a romantic thing. He wouldn't have written this book because there was no love interest, which is I don't agree with, but that's another story.
No, but in saying that, he did have a broken heart because he did. Within the 15-year-old left.
I think there are elements of romance.
Yes, that's exactly. But in saying that, I think that it's a book for everybody. Yeah. It's certainly not just for males. And certainly is for teenagers to start learning more about what happened in those days in that settlement. And so now the next question that I'm going to ask you is that I'm now sitting here waiting patiently for the next book.
Oh, thank you. I'm waiting to think about what it's going to be.
Well, look, I'm sure it's going to come up again very soon, and I've no doubt that it will be another fabulous book.
Look, thank you, Ellen. I really appreciate you doing this. Ellen is the most fantastic TV host in the world, and I'm very lucky to have had her. Thank you for having me today, and I hope all my listeners you enjoyed that and will read The Ghost and the Bounty Hunter.
Yes, and I think you should. It's not a sequel of each other, but I think you must read one of the both of them. You can do it in any order because both of them complement each other.
Exactly. Buy one, get one free. No.
No, that's not true.
No, it's not true. You have to buy them
out there. They're in the bookshops, so go get one now.
Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. We'll leave it at that. Thanks very much. Goodbye.